Greetings, vinyl community. Once again, I find myself with entirely too many records to show, thanks largely to a nice score I made last week at the local record shop, so I'm just going to quickly go through the latest acquisitions. Let's get cracking. Start off with a record store day item from a past record store day. I did not do record store day this year. I've gone off it pretty much entirely, but I did pick up one from a recent record store day, the reissue of The World of David Bowie, and this is on nice blue vinyl on the Decca label, complete with reproduction of the original Decca inner sleeve with care instructions for your LP, in case you don't know the care and feeding of the vinyl record. And I'm a big fan of the early Bowie stuff, the stuff that's always compared to Anthony Newley. I love it. It's actually some of the first Bowie that I got into, having been a bit late getting into Bowie. Bowie, of course, had been a regular presence on the radio for years, and I always enjoyed the songs here and there, but wasn't really a fan until Low came out. That's the one that really flipped me into being a fan. And along with Low and Man Who Sold the World was another one that really caught my ear early on. But one of the others that really caught my ear was a compilation of this material, the early stuff from Bowie's Decca period, where he was doing the very poppy, very orchestrated material with still a bit of a hangover of the 60s sound, because it's still the 60s. Uncle Arthur, Little Bombardier, Sell Me a Coat, The London Boys. Love these songs. She's Got Medals. There's a lot of humor, a lot of whimsy, a lot of kind of earnest, sincere kind of adolescent emotion. Really enjoy that stuff. Album I just received this week from Klaus Schulze, who sadly passed away quite recently. One of the very greats of electronic music, founders of what came to be called the Berlin School of Electronics. His album Shadowlands from 2018. There was a great deal on this on Amazon. It was under $20 for the triple LP. It's actually a 5-sided LP, the sixth side being etched. Yes, it's one of those. Not my favorite way to use vinyl, but there you go. Let's see if that's visible. You can see Klaus Schulze's signature etched into the vinyl of the sixth side. And this album includes collaborations with Lisa Gerrard from Dead Can Dance, who's done a number of things with Klaus Schulze. There's also some other acoustic instruments added to Klaus Schulze's typical arsenal of synthesizers. So there's some really nice violin stuff that goes through and blends in quite well with the typical sequencer-driven electronic, symphonic epicness. Back to the world of classic rock. This is going to be a very classic rock-oriented collection. I think if you expect a lot of more esoteric stuff from some of my videos, this isn't that. Bobby Weir and the Wolf Brothers, live in Colorado, double LP, with a little insert there. Very nice, mostly but not entirely covers of Grateful Dead material, and this is the indie exclusive colored vinyl edition with one disc on gold and one disc on, I think this is teal. There we go. Quite a different sound from the Grateful Dead, actually. And he doesn't stick to his own songs. He does a couple of Garcia songs on there. So very, very enjoyable. Another colored vinyl reissue, the first album from Can, Monster Movie. This is replacing my previous reissue copy because it's on that cool Monster Sky colored vinyl, as they call it. This first album is the one album they made from the early period with the original vocalist, Malcolm Mooney, who left after this album, did rejoin them when they did a reunion in the late 80s or early 90s. But on this album, he brings in a lot of interesting improvised vocal textures, some nursery rhyme derived lyrics, and the whole thing culminates in the epic sidelong You Do Right, which is like Can's answer to the Velvet Underground's Sister Ray. I think everyone makes that comparison. But great album. Went up to San Francisco briefly on the day after Record Store Day and picked up some interesting things, including 3 jazz albums with wacky titles. First off is Horace Arnold, Tales of the Exonerated Flea. This is a great fusion album from 1974. It's prominently featuring Jan Hammer on synthesizers and electric piano. Ralph Towner is on here. Unrecognizable on the back. He gets his picture on there, playing guitar. Ralph Towner on guitar. John Abercrombie is also on here on guitar. Rick Laird on bass. Damum Ramau on percussion. Sonny Fortune on sax and flute. And other folks. David Friedman on vibes and bass marimba. So a real amazing set of personnel for a really enjoyable set of fusion jazz. Mingus, Me, Myself, and I. This is from very late in Mingus's career, and this is apparently the first one that he recorded. This was from 1978, released at least in 1978. I think it was recorded in 78 as well. But by this point, Mingus was too ill to play the bass, so this is the first one where he appears as composer and arranger and does not actually play the bass, but he's assembled an amazing big band, or you'd basically call this an orchestra, to perform his works. He has remakes of 2 of his early pieces, Devil Woman and Wednesday Night Prayer Meeting. And side 1 is taken up with the 30-minute long 3 Worlds of Drums. And the thing ends with Carolyn Kiki Mingus. Personnel includes Pepper Adams, Ronnie Cuber, Randy Brecker, Jack Walrath, Slide Hampton, Eddie Gomez, and George Mraz on basses, Joe Chambers, Steve Gadd, and of course the redoubtable Danny Richmond on drums, so on and so on. Little needs to be said because all Mingus albums are great. And Mingus makes an appearance on this Rahsaan Roland Kirk album, also from late in Roland Kirk's career. Mingus makes an appearance as a composer because Roland Kirk does a cover of the classic composition Goodbye Pork Pie Hat with lyrics. This was before Joni Mitchell did her version with lyrics, different lyrics. He also does Giant Steps with lyrics. This is a very fun album, as a lot of Roland Kirk's are. This is The Return of the 5,000-Pound Man. And it's a promo copy. The Mingus is also a promo, but it's just not a label promo, just a gold stamp. This one is a label promo on Warner Brothers with the not for sale warning on it, so I didn't try to convince the clerk at the record store that it was not for sale. He sold it to me. Wow, we got away with it too. This is a confession on video. Also picked up at the same time Luciano Berio, Coro, as the title Suggests a choral work in many, many sections in this cool silvery cover. I think there was a thread going on about silver album covers. I haven't actually watched the videos for that. And one more from that score, In Dury and the Blockheads' Laughter, the album that includes Superman's Big Sister, which they couldn't say, so they blocked it out. And for good measure, they also blocked out the title of Fucking Ada. But strange thing about this copy is that, you know those Peter's International stickers that you sometimes see on imported albums from back in the day? This is an American album. It's not an import, but it had one of those stickers that somehow adhered, apparently from another album that was next to this in a stack somewhere, and the front of the sticker was totally glued right on here. The back of the sticker was facing out, but with all my might and various solvents, I couldn't get the Peters International entirely off, so some of it remains there. Hey, great record too, but come here for the stories, don't you? Okay, and the big score from last week at the local shop. This was amazing to find. Clear Light, very spacey, somewhat fusiony in this case. The earlier Clear Light, this is no relation to the American Clear Light that recorded for Elektra. This is the French Clear Light, spearheaded by Cyril Verdeau on keyboards, playing grand piano, Arp Odyssey, and gong on here, with some gong-related personnel, Didier Lockwood on violin, Didier Malherbe on flute and sax from gong, Christian Boule or Boulez, I'm not sure, on guitar, and so on. There's some Indian instruments, tabla and sitar, used on side 2. Great, spacey, fusiony, progressive rock. Really excellent and a very surprising find. Not the kind of thing that usually turns up locally. So while I was finding that, I grabbed up a copy of Joe Cocker's debut with a little help from my friends. And there's some of those friends, Mr. Jimmy Page, Mr. Steve Winwood, Matthew Fisher and B.J. Wilson from Procol Harum, which is a bit much because I think Matthew Fisher is only on one track and Steve Winwood is only on one track, but these are the friends. And Joe Cocker was not known as a songwriter, so of course we've got mostly covers on here. Dylan, standards like Bye Bye Blackbird. He's got Traffic's Feelin' All Right, of course, classic version of that. He's got Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. Another Dylan, I Shall Be Released. Of course, the epic version of the Beatles song with a little help from my friends. And there are a couple of originals as well. This was an odd one. I didn't know this existed. This is a U.S. copy of the Moody Blues To Our Children's Children's Children in a non-gatefold sleeve. This is not an album I had when it first came out. I bought this album later in life when I was catching up, when I was working full-time, and during my early years at working full-time, I started catching up on a lot of the older records that I didn't have in my collection. And so in the early 80s, I guess, when I bought my older copy of this, by then they were still putting a gatefold sleeve on it, but this copy does not have it. So that was odd. And somebody dumped a lot of Renaissance albums, and I picked up 3 of them, starting with Ashes Are Burning, their album from 1973, and this is with the lyric inner sleeve on the Sovereign label. And the following album, Turn of the Cards. This is on the Sire label. The nice Joe Patano artwork on the cards on the front, and the band members replacing them on the back. And the one that I was really looking for, probably my favorite Renaissance album, Scheherazade and Other Stories. I was about to say Song of Scheherazade, which is the title of the side-long suite that takes up side 2, which is a wonderful orchestral epic piece. It is based on the story of Scheherazade and includes some musical references to the famous Rimsky-Korsakov symphonic piece Scheherazade, but it's not really an adaptation of that, just weaves in a little quote from it. And side 1 of this album is no slouch either, with A Trip to the Fair, Vultures Fly High, and Ocean Gypsy, all terrific, terrific songs. From 1975, Renaissance, Scheherazade and Other Stories, with the cool inner sleeve with the lyrics. And then from 1979, the Roaches' debut album. This was wonderful, wonderful kind of confessional singer-songwriter material, but with a lot of quirk to it, and the Roaches' amazing harmonies, and very stark production from Robert Fripp, who also plays on the album. He does a brilliant guitar solo on Hammond Song. Beautiful, beautiful album. Steel Eye Span, Sails of Silver from 1981. This was a reunion album. They had released Live at Last a couple of years earlier. That and Stormforce 10 had been the 2 albums they made with a revamped lineup, with Martin Carthy returning on guitar and vocals, and John Kirkpatrick on accordion, replacing Bob Johnson and Peter Knight, who had played guitar and fiddle. Live at Last, as the title implies, was meant to be their last album, and was stated right on the back of it that this is the final Steel Eye Span album. Well, a couple of years later, they decided to reunite and made this album with the classic mid-70s lineup, with Bob Johnson and Peter Knight back in the fold. I actually have not had a chance to play this one yet, and I've never heard this album, so this is a new one to me. A couple of albums by Stefan Mikas. This is Till the End of Time from 1978 on the Japo label. And Stefan Mikas is noted for using ethnic instruments from all over the world. On here he features the Kortholt, a short German Renaissance reed instrument, evidently played by short Germans, and the Tableharp, a contemporary crossbreed of bowed psaltery, zither, and harp. By means of a special string arrangement, the instrument can be both plucked and bowed. And this consists of 2 sidelong tracks, Till the End of Time and For Wis and Ramen. Till the End of Time, 17 minutes 30 of absolute gorgeousness. It's one of the most beautiful things that he has recorded, and that says a lot. That features the Tableharp, the Kortholt, zither, and guitar. The other side is For Wis and Ramen, played on guitar, zither, and vocal. And he's shown with his nylon string guitar there. And also by Stefan Mikas from 1981, Cohen. And to know about this album, I think you have to read the Cohen on the back. Believing to have understood something about the essence of life, Cui Yen left his monastery at a young age to travel through China. After many years, on his return, his old master asked him, "Tell me about the essence of life." Zuyen answered, "When there are no clouds over the mountain, the moonlight penetrates the ripples of the lake." The master looked at his former disciple in anger. "You are getting old, your hair is gray, you have just a few teeth left, and still you have no understanding of life." Zuyen lowered his eyes, tears streaming over his face. After a few minutes he asked, "Please, would you tell me about the essence of life?" "When there are no clouds over the mountain," responded the master, "the moonlight penetrates the ripples of the lake." Stefan Mikas plays shakuhachi, the Japanese flute, zither, gendr, the Balinese instrument, sarangi from India, rabab from the Arab world, boran from Ireland, Burmese bells, so instruments from all over the globe. And he just does it beautifully. This was recorded in 1977, so it's actually from before the previous album I showed, but this was released on ECM in 1981. It's an unusual label, ECM SP. It doesn't have the ECM series catalog number. I think that's just a regular Polydor catalog number. And some previous owner has put some little dot stickers on it. 2 dots for side 1 and 1 dot for side 2. So that's logical. That must be a Zen thing. Finally, a few classical items. Johann Christian Bach, the youngest son of Johann Sebastian Bach, and Johann Gottlieb Graun, both musicians from the court of Frederick the Great, both composing concertos for the bassoon here. So that's simply what we've got. George Zuckerman playing the bassoon. And this is music from the classical period, the period of Mozart and Haydn, the true classical period. So it's very restrained and logical and Enlightenment era type of music. Nothing profound, but very nice. This was from the free bin. Symphony No. 3 by Walter Piston. I didn't even expect to keep this one. And I don't think this will show. This is on the Mercury label. But this was one of those very old records from back in the days when they would use just plastic bags for the inner sleeve. And there was recently a video, it's quite current video on YouTube from, I think it's Parlophone Auctions, warning against using any kind of packaging material made of PVC on your records, because the plasticizers can leach into the vinyl of the record itself if there's any heat, because it outgasses from the PVC. So you've got outer sleeves made of PVC that gas can get in and affect the vinyl. And certainly those old plastic style inner sleeves are made of PVC, because this one, the vinyl surface, the entire vinyl surface is distinctly cloudy. It definitely reacted with some outgassing over the years. And this is a very old pressing. This, like a lot of records, has this guy's dates on it from all the times the record was played. And so it starts in April 1956. So this album is at least a couple of months older than I am. I actually did not know the Symphony by Walter Piston, wasn't really very conversant with Walter Piston's music in general, but I've read a lot of books by Walter Piston because I've studied these texts in studying how to compose music, his counterpoint, his harmony, and especially his orchestration. So, but the music on the album turned out to be really, really excellent. So I'm keeping that copy, cloudy vinyl and all. Finally, Terry Riley in C, one of the seminal works of minimalism, classic record. I'm not sure I'm going to keep this copy. I do already have a different version with a different cover, but this is just so good. It sounds wonderful. And this is the version that does have the score included in the cover, which my other copy does not. But my other copy has a really cool looking cover, the French import version. And the way this piece works is that one person sets up a beat, a meter, which is just a grid for everyone to refer to. And it's done on the highest octave of the piano, just C, an octave C, plink, 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 playing in eighth notes. Plink, 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 plink. And then everybody, when they feel like it, join in playing the first fragment over that beat. And whenever each instrumentalist feels like it, he proceeds on to the second. And everyone just does it at will. So there's no synchronization. People will be playing different parts, different selections from these fragments at different times, making the transition at different speeds, but it's designed so that there is an overall change of sound. So the first sounds will reinforce the C chord, and it gradually evolves into reinforcing the E chord and the G chord, I think, following the triad structure of the C chord itself. And you can see all the little bits starting out extremely simple, just ba-dump, ba-dump, ba-dump on the third, and gradually adding more and more melodic elements. All right, thank you very much for watching. Be well. Talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.